It was written by Mrs. F.N. Watkins from Dublin back in the early 1900s. But that's creeds. Mrs. Watkins' sister was a teacher at William and Mary, and she came to Dublin frequently to visit her. And when she came, she was so impressed with the Dublin ladies, this is early 1900s, that they really had a brain and they had no way to use it. And she has organized a woman's study club. And it is still in existence 102 years later. So her sister wrote a book of poems. I wrote a poem which was a poem that was put into a book that was published by the Woman's Study Club. But creeds I like. In my friend's church are saints and incense sweet. They enter and make genuflections low and tell their beads. She says it is not meet that she should come with me to pray, and so we go our ways. Her holy temple claims another friend, as dear of Israel's race. Nor do we pray together, though she names the same God, Father, as she seeks his face. But when they brought one that we loved and laid him in a church that was not theirs or mine, we knelt in sorrow and together prayed. Our creeds were less than nothing then. The sign of death is brotherhood. Oh, we learn late. Death blends our creeds as life doth separate.
That is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Are all of them sonnets?
No, but it's gorgeous.
It is. What a wonderful idea there.
The club, she wrote this poem which was in the first yearbook, 1912. What is a woman's club? A meeting ground for those of purpose great and broad and strong, whose aim is toward the stars, who ever long to make the patient listening world resound with sweeter music, purer, nobler tones. A place where kindly, helpful words are said, where wealth of brain and kindlier deeds are done, where hearts are fed, where wealth of brain for poverty atones, and hand grasp hand, and soul finds touch with soul. This is a woman's club, a haven fair where toilers drop an hour their load of care. And Donna's a member of the Woman's Study Club, and she knows it's Woman's Study Club. The purpose was that each woman had to study and present a program. And you do. You go in and you listen for an hour, and it doesn't matter what's going on outside. You learn.
You feel like you've had a vacation when you come out.
And you've learned. And I was in it for 60 years, and I just bemoan that I've forgotten all the things I learned those 60 years. But we enjoyed it. The one on the left also appeals to me, but Burned Chimneys. Early, when she's writing these poems in the 30s and the 40s, this was a very rural area, very few paved roads. In fact, 85 years ago, when I'm doing my articles, I found out in 85 years ago, there was not 1 inch of pavement in Lawrence County.
Wow.
No, we didn't have Highway 80. We didn't have anything. So riding through the country, she is this picture. It also appeals to me because our house burned. And that was all that was left of it, was the chimneys. And Mama and I were at school, and so we got down to the house in time to see it in flames. But my father, who had been birthed probably and brought up in that house, didn't get that till later, and all he saw were the chimneys. And so the poem is very touching to me. Along the country roads of all the land, burned chimneys stand to mark the hallowed spot where lived and died a home. They take command and stand like silent guardsmen. There's the lot of patient waiting through the quiet years. Erect and grim they stand, and yet the heart of every home, sharing the hopes and fears of those they loved and watched and saw depart. They are the tombstones on which one may read the tale of Christmas stockings gaily hung. Around them lovers plighted vows. In need the faithful prayed, and lullabies were sung as life went by. Humbly I bow my head before burned chimneys, watching o'er their dead.
That one's a sonnet, too.
I don't think all of them were sonnets. I can't
well,
remember.
That one's not. So.
Yeah. Well, of course,
But
that
these
one
two
was
are.
not in the book that she,
Oh,
that
she
they
just
published.
wrote it.
Yeah, she
Okay.
wrote that for the yearbook.
But still.
And these were the books later.
Being able to write a sonnet and just get the rhythm and rhyme right is hard enough.
You're not kidding.
And being
Absolutely.
able to say something
Right.
is just wonderful. It reminds me of Anne Bradstreet
Oh,
on the
yeah.
burning of our
Yes,
house.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Anne Bradstreet. People don't even study Anne Bradstreet
Probably
anymore.
not.
No.
They don't divide it
Well,
into
she
early
was the-
American literature.
Right.
Well, she was the
Exactly.
first one. The first great woman, American woman.
As
writer.
far as I
Definitely.
know.
Yes.
Yeah, I think she was. Yeah. But she wrote something else that was very much like Browning's, like Elizabeth Barrett Browning's. She's writing to her husband.
To my dear and loving husband.
Right,
To
to
my
my
dear
dear
loving
loving husband, that's
yeah,
right.
she sure did. Well, we could do some. We could do some of that. Go back to the early American literature.
I like that
Okay.
idea.
We'll try to remember it, and
Okay.
and I'll write myself a note and try to remember where I put it. Okay. Okay. Now, who wants to read something? Do we need something happier? No.
Definitely. If we have something
What
happier.
time?
We want to do.
Well, I've got a
Yes.
fun thing here,
Okay.
and I'm not sure it's all that happy. The prodigal
Well,
son.
Well, he comes home.
He does. Come. Well, now you're going back to the 15th chapter of Luke. Of course, you have the lost. You have the lost coin, and you have the lost sheep, and then the lost boy. Well, of course, the prodigal son is not the lost boy, because he comes home. Essentially, it's the boy who has been there all the time
That's
who is
exactly
lost.
right.
But this is the prodigal one who does come home. If you know James Weldon Johnson, this poem was written in 1927, and I was surprised because I thought it had been written maybe 5 or 10 years later because of the framework of the poem. He's black and he's talking to young black men and boys, and he's talking about a boxer. And Joe Louis, of course, was boxing then, but
Right.
he wasn't the world's heavyweight champion until I think about 37. But I think he was a lightweight champion. But that was their way. That was the most important person in that
definitely.
culture.
Definitely.
Was the boxer, and so he puts that framework there which I particularly like. Well, we'll read it together. We'll read the. I like the poem. It actually was in one of my 102 books. Do you have it? I love to teach the literature in 102. And of course, the problem was that the students never knew what. They had the wrong idea of what prodigal meant. When
I did for a long
for
time.
a long time, and that's because, of course, the older brother comes in and tells him, "You have wasted your money with prostitutes." So, and of course, the prodigal is waste, and he's wasted his money with everything. Now, in Dante, if you remember, Dante has the prodigals, those who have wasted their money, and those who have sat on it, the savers. And they are going around the mountain like
circles.
that. And they meet each other and say, "Why did you waste? Why did you sit on your money?" They go back around, "Why did you waste?" Which is very interesting. But anyway, it's It's very descriptive. Okay?
Okay.
Set the scene for us.
I should
Okay?
start?
Yeah.
Okay. Young man, your arm's too short to box with God.
But Jesus spoke in a parable, and he said, a certain man had 2 sons. Jesus didn't give this man a name, but his name is God Almighty. And Jesus didn't call these sons by name, but every young man everywhere is one of these 2 sons.
And the younger son said to his father, he said, Father, divide up the property and give me my portion now. And the father, with tears in his eyes, said, Son, don't leave your father's house. But the boy was stubborn in his head and haughty in his heart, and he took his share of his father's goods and went into a far-off country.
There comes a time when every young man looks out from his father's house, longing for that far-off country.
And the young man journeyed on his way, and he said to himself as he traveled along, this sure is an easy road, nothing like the rough furrows behind my father's plow.
Young man, smooth and easy is the road that leads to hell and destruction. Downgrade all the way. The further you travel, the faster you go. No need to trudge and sweat and toil. Just slip and slide till you bang up against hell's iron gate.
And the younger son kept traveling along till at nighttime he came to a city. And the city was bright in the nighttime, like day. The streets all crowded with people, brass bands and string bands a-playing. And everywhere the young man turned, there was singing and laughing and dancing. And he stopped the passerby and he said, Tell me what city is this? And the passerby laughed and said, Don't you know? This is Babylon. Babylon, the great city of Babylon. Come on, my friend, and go along with me. And the young man joined the crowd.
Young man, you're never lonesome in Babylon. You can always join a crowd in Babylon. Young man, you can never be alone in Babylon. Alone with your Jesus in Babylon. You can never find a lonesome place to get down on your knees and talk with your God in Babylon. You're always in a crowd in Babylon.
And the young man went with his newfound friend and bought himself some brand new clothes. And he spent his days in the drinking dens, swallowing the fires of hell. And he spent his nights in the gambling dens, throwing dice with the devil for his soul. And he met up with the women of Babylon. Oh, the women of Babylon.
Oh, the women of Babylon.
Dressed in yellow and purple and scarlet, loaded with rings and earrings and bracelets, their lips like a honeycomb, dripping with honey, perfumed and sweet smelling, like a jasmine flower. And the jasmine smell of the Babylon women got in his nostrils and went to his head, and he wasted his substance in riotous living. In the evening, in the black and dark of night, with the sweet sinning women of Babylon, and they stripped him of his money, and they stripped him of his clothes, and they left him broke and ragged in the streets of Babylon.
Then the young man joined another crowd, the beggars and lepers of Babylon. And he went to feeding swine, and he was hungrier than the hogs. He got down on his belly in the mire and mud and ate the husks with the hogs. And not a hog was too low to turn up his nose at the man in the mire of Babylon.
Then the young man came to himself. He came to himself and said, In my Father's house are many mansions. Every servant in his house has bread to eat. Every servant in his house has a place to sleep. I will arise and go to my father.
And his father saw him afar off, and he ran up the road to meet him. He put clean clothes upon his back and a gold chain around his neck, and he made a feast and killed the fatted calf and invited the neighbors in.
Oh, sinner, when you're mingling with the crowd in Babylon, drinking the wine of Babylon, running with the women of Babylon, you forget about God and you laugh at death. Today you've got the strength of a bull in your neck and the strength of a bear in your arms, but some of these days, you'll have a hand-to-hand struggle with bony death, and death is bound to win.
Young man, come away from Babylon, that hell-border city of Babylon. Leave the dancing and gambling of Babylon, the wine and whiskey of Babylon, the hot-mouthed women of Babylon. Fall down on your knees and say in your heart, I will arise and go to my Father.
Very nice.
What do you like about it? I love the
description. The jasmine smell.
The sweet sinning women.
And the jasmine smell of the Babylon women got in his nostrils and went to his head.
And I'm sure it did.
Absolutely.
It is so graphic. What do you particularly, anything? I love the description that the young man traveled on his way, and it was an easy road, and smooth and easy is the road that leads to hell and destruction. Downgrade all the way. The further you travel, the faster you go till you bang up against hell's iron gate.
That's exactly right. It is descriptive. Very descriptive.
A slippery slope.
Slippery slope.
It is a
Doesn't
great
actually go into the older brother.
No, it doesn't.
This is what I said. This is just the prodigal son.
Yeah.
This is not the lost
But it
that we see.
tells lessons.
It tells the story of the prodigal son, but he does come home. Is there another one you particularly want to do on Maya Angelou now?
I'd like to share Touched by an Angel.
Okay.
As we're finishing and talking about it. We, unaccustomed to courage, exiles from delight, live coiled in shells of loneliness until love leaves its high, holy temple and comes into our sight to liberate us into life. Love arrives, and in its train come ecstasies of old memories of pleasures, ancient histories of pain. Yet if we are bold, love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls. We are weaned from our timidity. In the flush of love's light, we dare be brave. And suddenly, we see that love costs all we are and will ever be. Yet it is only love which sets us free.
I like that. I was not familiar with it.
I do too. It's one of my favorite. That if we are bold, love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls.
And she had to be bold to face some of the things she faced.
Definitely.
Okie dokie. Now, last Thursday. Last month,
Yes.
we also celebrated or observed Memorial Day. And Donna, I think you have a poem related to Memorial Day.
I do.
Okay.
It is from a World War II poet.
Okay.
His name is Henry Reed, and I didn't know much about him, but he was a teacher and a journalist. He's British. He was drafted in 1941, and because he was a teacher and good with language, his job during a lot of the war was translating Japanese. So
Since he knew English so well.
Yeah. Well, and then after the war, he became a television journalist, and told one of his friends that he spent the rest of his life trying to forget one Japanese word every day. So he had a sense of humor.
Well, he might considering everything, he might should have learned one more Japanese word a day. Okay, let's see.
Well, this is called the naming of parts. No "the" to it.
Hold it just a
There you
minute.
go,
Yep,
right
I
there.
got it. Okie dokie.
And it's about basic training, what they did before D-Day, what everybody had to go through.
Oh, and we'll break in that D-Day will be this weekend.
Yeah.
And many, what is this, the 60th anniversary? Yeah,
That's
1944.
right.
Yes.
That's exactly
And
right.
I've heard
The
about
6th of June.
all the people who are planning to go in the programs, and that President Obama will be there then on Saturday, which will be the 7th. And so this will be fitting right in with the naming of parts. Okay.
Every one of them that participated in D-Day had to go through this training.
Yes.
But it shows a young man in training who's not really focused on what he'll be doing in war yet. The sergeant knows, the one doing the training, but the recruits don't know. I don't know the troops. Maybe they're not recruits if they were drafted. The parts they're naming are parts of a rifle, but this particular speaker is not totally focused on the lesson. Naming of Parts by Henry Reed. Today, we have naming of parts. Yesterday, we had daily cleaning. And tomorrow morning, we shall have what to do after firing. But today, we have naming of parts. Japonica glistens like coral in all of the neighboring gardens, and today we have naming of parts. This is the lower sling swivel, and this is the upper sling swivel, whose use you will see when you are given your slings. And this is the piling swivel, which in your case you have not got. The branches hold in the gardens their silent, eloquent gestures, which in our case we have not got. This is the safety catch, which is always released with an easy flick of the thumb. And please do not let me see anyone using his finger. You can do it quite easy if you have any strength in your thumb. The blossoms are fragile and motionless, never letting anyone see any of them using their finger. And this, you can see, is the bolt. The purpose of this is to open the breech, as you can see. We can slide it rapidly backwards and forwards. We call this easing the spring. And rapidly backwards and forwards, the early bees are assaulting and fumbling the flowers. They call it easing the spring. They call it easing the spring. It is perfectly easy if you have any strength in your thumb, like the bolt and the breech and the cocking piece and the point of balance, which in our case we have not got, and the almond blossom, silent in all of the gardens, and the bees going backwards and forwards. For today, we have naming of parts.
I love this poem. This is the first time I
It's
read
adorable.
it when you brought it in today, and
It actually does have a little bit of humor because
does.
the sergeant's trying so hard. And you don't have this, but we're going to go through
That's
it
why-
anyway.
And we've all been through that, you know. And I like it's like the first day of class. Okay, now we will have such and such pages. You don't have your books yet,
Right.
but this is
But.
what. But you're
And
still.
when you get them, you'll understand.
When you get them, if you can possibly remember that this is what we said that we were going to do, and it always bothered me.
And meanwhile, the mind is on the flowers
The
and
outside.
the bees and spring with a capital S
right.
instead of easing the spring of the rifle.
Because he was so young. I mean, of course, and it's springtime, and everyone is alive in the spring and wants to, be part of nature.
I
Not
spent
listening
some
to
time I spent some time this morning looking out the window at some bees that were busy working right outside.
Well, and then there's a contrast that he's learning to kill.
Absolutely.
And
The
then you have this is life.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything here is life. When I first read this poem, a long time ago, what hit me was that fourth line, the word japonica. Now, you know, they were japonicas till after World War II, and we changed the name of them.
Oh, really?
Because of the Japan connection? I did not know that either.
Yeah. And so to see that, and that's the beginning of World War II, of course, I don't think that Great Britain, the British, had the same war with Japan that we did, you know. So it probably did not have that same meaning to them. But that
maybe
was funny.
they didn't change it.
They may have not have. Well, I don't know. We don't know when he wrote it. But anyway, the contrast there is all the way through. I think
Even
it just gets you.
The sergeant's words are precise and giving, you know, this and this and this, and then when he talks about the spring, it's flowing and pretty and nice.
How did you happen to come upon this poem?
It was in the AP book that I taught from, and
I think
I read
used
it
to
one
be in
day
that
and fell in
1102
love.
book.
I don't remember this one. I was telling Donna that I'm very fond of the World War II British young poets that were, you know, called the war poets that wrote, and I think Donna touched on something that was so important. This young man, certainly going through this training, wasn't ready for what he was about to see and wasn't experienced in war, and I think that really stands out to me too. His you know, kind of drifting off of, the sergeant's talking about how to fix a rifle. Well, that's something you're really going to need. When you're really going to need how to be able to, you know how to do that when you get it. But as a young man...
The first three lines. Today we have naming of parts.
Yesterday
we had daily cleaning. And tomorrow morning we shall have what to do after firing, but not firing.
Right, exactly.
It
no
skips
training.
it. I don't know if that's intentional.
Well, I guess.
I
Maybe
guess
it's
all
just
of
the
them
parts of what to do with the rifle, not how to do it with the rifle.
Well, now what? Excuse me, but what British poets war poets in World War II? See, I go back to the Irish back down in World War One. They had wonderful poems.
And I should have said, I misspoke. I should have said World War One and World War II. Wilfred Owen in World War One, and then. There, you know, Sassoon was another poet who wrote in the World Wars. But even, you know, between the two wars, so many of the themes were the same because they were so close in time, for one thing, certainly, but just that being so unaware of what faced them, I think, is just always so heartbreaking.
Well, there were some good American poets in the world. Do you ever read John Crow Ransom?
Definitely.
Yeah. What is that?
I actually happen to have a World War One poem.
There you go.
But John Crow Ransom, that was World War II. The death of the ball turret gunner.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
Yes, that's gruesome.
Well, of course it's gruesome. War is gruesome.
Definitely. Well, and just like Wilfred Owen with
The gas.
sludging, exactly.
Yeah, we did that one.
Yes,
that
we
was
did.
just awful. We don't want to do that one anymore. I'm
Well,
not ever read
depressing.
it again.
Again, like we were that day.
Do you have a war poem?
I do not. I have a poem about death and kind of connecting to
Well,
the
Donna
ideas there,
has
but
the most,
definitely. Let's
the
read
most
that.
famous of all the World War One poems.
On Facebook, I asked, what should I read for Memorial Day? And I got the answer, In Flanders Fields. I got several more, including the ball turret gunner, but I thought that was a little gruesome for people watching it at night. Several people have told me I watch you in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, and that would keep you up.
Yes.
So we'll think pretty and poppies, and
Okay.
this is very, very famous, and I think we may have even read it
I
before.
think we have, but that's okay. This is Memorial Day remembrance.
And it's World War I, In Flanders Fields by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, who died of pneumonia in World War I while serving in France. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the lark still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up your quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
The felt dawn and seeing the sunset. I think that's interesting. Everybody used to have to learn that in the 7th grade. Everybody memorized it, but I don't imagine they do that anymore.
But they should.
They should.
My daughters both recently had to, when they were, I think it was in 5th or 4th grade, one of those. Both of them had to learn some poems.
In Flanders fields.
Not this one, but Frost. Okay. And so I was excited. They weren't so excited, but
I don't think my son ever had to learn a poem in school.
I don't think my children did either.
Because if he had, I'd know it better than he would
exactly.
from rehearsing it.
Exactly.
Okay, let's do a death poem and let's move into happy. What did you say your students ask if you're going to read? Talk about death all quarter?
Yes, exactly. Are we only going to talk about depressing stuff, Miss Crombie? Man. But this is I think a beautiful look at something that sometimes people don't consider, certainly.
Which
very
one?
Beautiful. Do Not Stand by My Grave and Weep by Mary Elizabeth Fry.
And what do you know about her?
I do not. I'm sorry. I think this is just such a beautiful look at death, especially with the memorial poems and also with
in Flanders Fields.
It does. It definitely does. When you were reading it, I was like, yes. I love when they connect like that. and also with the memory, of course, of Dr. Angelou's passing. Do not stand by my grave and weep. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sun on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled light. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry, I am not there, I did not die.
That's nice.
I love the going back to nature and being part of the world.
You don't know approximately when this was written?
I don't. I'm
Guess
sorry.
we'll have to look it up.
Definitely. I will do that for next time if you'd like me to.
I was thinking Whitman.
Absolutely.
Look for me in a blade of grass.
Yes.
With the rhymed couplets, it keeps it from, it ticks it off so that you get it, and doesn't seem so depressing.
And we talked about the poem "The Names," didn't we? With the war, isn't it the names? I'm sorry. I'm with the bombing of the Twin Towers.
Oh yes,
yes.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of that poem as well, with the names being
Billy Collins.
Exactly, of being part of nature again, and the ashes blowing out to sea, and it's just that kind of that circle of life, kind of glimpse.
Well, one poem relating to death that I happened to bring it, and we'll look at it first, and then I'll talk about it. Good afternoon. This is the Dublin Poetry Club, and we are going to read poetry today for our June 2014 show. On my right is Rhonda Crombie, whom you know. She is a teacher a professor at the Dublin Center. And to my left is Donna Pollock, a retired English teacher at many summers. And I'm Harriet Claxton, and I taught at the Dublin Center. We are missing Dr. Stephen Svannebeck, who is involved with the new quarter out at the center, and we'll miss him. The biggest news in the last month in the poetry world came about last Thursday with the announcement of the death of Maya Angelou. And we have talked about her before. When we were discussing the poets who had written special poems for our presidents, Maya Angelou, of course, was one of those, and Rhonda talked about her. Rhonda had met her, and Donna had heard her read her poetry, and I have not taught her poetry as much as I taught her prose. Everybody who has been to college in the last 20 years has probably been exposed to I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Mm-hmm. But we're not doing prose. This is a poetry club. Mm-hmm. And if you have been following some of the obituaries, you know that she was a woman of many, many careers. And she was indeed a phenomenal woman. And she wrote about herself, entitled it Phenomenal Woman. And Rhonda's going to read that to us.
I am. Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's in the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need of my care, 'cause I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's me.
I don't know what to say. What are we supposed to say?
She says it all, doesn't she?
we can't argue with that.
No, we can't.
You know?
And I was telling my daughters today about what an incredible presence she had, because she was over 6 feet tall and had such a booming voice.
I was fixing to say, she said she didn't talk loud, but everything I've ever heard was loud.
And even if she weren't talking loud, her words went so far. She weren't talking loudly. Her words just went so far, and what she said and how she said it and her presence. I told my girls, if you were in her presence, you knew you were in her presence. Absolutely.
Donna, what did she read when you saw her at Georgia Southern? Do you
I
remember?
don't remember. She read a lot of her poetry. She also talked about herself some, and it was just a nice presentation to a lot of people.
Was it well received?
Yes,
Very
it was.
well received, yes. Well, we have talked amongst us about some of the many, many honors and recognitions that she received. Of course, the Pulitzer, but others we can't remember.
There were so many. There were
were.
and so many honorary degrees as well from many different universities. I found a really interesting article too, if I may, online. It's a very common thing these days to play on a work that was called "Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten," and frequently you can find different articles that approach that from different directions. And this one I found was "Everything I Need to Know I Learned from Maya Angelou." And I thought that some of the points this writer brought out were very interesting, and some of the connections she made to Dr. Angelou's life certainly were interesting as well. And here are the areas in short.
Rhonda, who is writing this?
This was just a blogger online named Jessica Tholmer.
Okay.
But I thought some of the things that she mentioned about Dr. Angelou being a teacher, and these are the lessons that she taught through her life. Number 1, respect your elders. Number 2, tell the truth. Number 3, the value of one's history. Number 4, humanize everyone. Number 5, courage is the most important of all the virtues. Number 6, in order to get a friend, you have to be a friend. Number 7, be the bigger person. Number 8, very important lesson, forgive. Number 9, dare to be bigger. And number 10, women are phenomenal, which is, of course, connected to the poem we were just sharing.
Done that as a David Letterman list.
Absolutely. Number 10. Drum roll. One of the most interesting points I thought was number 4, humanize everyone. And this is what the blogger wrote. When asked about Malcolm X in an interview, Dr. Angelou spoke of his keen sense of humor. She spoke of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s sense of humor as well, though she stated that she knew Malcolm X and a lot better than she knew Dr. King. To respond with a reflection about humor when asked about 2 of the greatest civil rights leaders in our country's history is bold. Dr. Angelou went on to explain she believes in the importance of humanizing these deep political figures to create attainability among younger generations. How else will young people learn from and really understand these men and their true dreams while viewing them on such an elevated level? I thought it was very interesting.
What would you think was the most important of those 10?
That one was pretty important.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That one and forgive.
Stuck
out to me. What an important life lesson if we really can. Here's what the blogger wrote about that just quickly. When asked for the best advice she'd ever received, Dr. Angelou responded with that one key point: to forgive. Such a simple, powerful idea of forgiveness.
And the one about courage was
yes.
good too.
Absolutely. Courage is the most important of the virtues.
Well, you know, I'm a history major.
Know your history.
And I think her emphasis on the history, who she was.
Yes.
Because that was basic to everything she did, who she was and where she came from. And that was what drove her and made her into the phenomenal woman.
Definitely.
If she had been born in Savannah, Georgia. It might have been, or New York City at a different time. She would have been a different person.
Certainly.
Like today. What difference would it have made in her life if she were born in 2014?
Definitely.
All right, and you have one you want to do
I do.
of Maya Angelou, okay?
It's called Alone. Lying, thinking last night how to find my soul a home, where water is not thirsty, and bread loaf is not stone, I came up with one thing, and I don't believe I'm wrong, that nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone, nobody but nobody can make it out here all alone. There are some millionaires with money they can't use. Their wives run around like banshees. Their children sing the blues. They've got expensive doctors to cure their hearts of stone. But nobody, no, nobody can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone, nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Now, if you listen closely, I'll tell you what I know. Storm clouds are gathering. The wind is gonna blow. The race of man is suffering. And I can hear the moan, 'cause nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone, nobody but nobody can make it out here alone.
Well, that's sort of contradictory to the phenomenal woman because she could have made it alone.
Well, in a lot of ways she did, but she had the grandmother for stability, and her father later on, and then her son.
And her friends.
And
her work. Yeah,
and Malcolm X with a sense of humor.
I know.
I know. Are we sure about this?
But he was extremely intelligent, and I'm sure to his friends, there was a sense of humor that the rest of us that we didn't see on television.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Is Johnson part of the Harlem Renaissance? Yeah, I was thinking so.
I was wondering that too.
That's
I'm
another
not sure.
thing.
I
It's been a long
I
time.
don't think so.
Oh.
I don't think so. I think he was all on his own with that. But
He's certainly the time period.
the time. One of the things that he says that I have always loved that he was talking about in the preface about the black preachers who are doing this sermon, he says, brethren and sisters, this morning I intend to explain the unexplainable, find out the undefinable, ponder over the imponderable, and unscrew the inscrutable. And he, of course, he does call this the book. There are seven trombones, and the Prodigal Son is one of them. What did we do? The creation is
Creation.
Yes, we did.
Well, we might do another one then because they're sort of fun.
They are.
You can just imagine that big booming voice like a
That's
trombone.
right, like a trombone, and that's the
And
reason he needed it.
So much repetition. Because you got to repeat it for it to sink in if they're thinking about the bees and the japonicas out the window.
That's right.
Okay. Do we have another one that you want to do? Okay. Donna, you said you were putting some by the side
I
over
have
there.
one.
Okay.
It's a war poem, too, and I guess maybe World War II. I don't know. It's Carl Sandburg, Grass. I guess I better give you all a copy.
Thank you.
It's more universal than the other two.
Well, he probably was writing in World War I, too. How old was he?
I do not remember. 20th century.
He's definitely 20th century, but, you know, he lived a long time. He could have spanned both wars. Okay.
Ypres and Verdun, that's World War I. So, at least maybe between the wars?
Might have been. Okay.
No, it's a... All right, this is Grass by Carl Sandburg. Pile the bodies high at Austerlitz and Waterloo. Shovel them under and let me work. I am the grass. I cover all. And pile them high at Gettysburg. And pile them high at Ypres and Verdun. Shovel them under and let me work. 2 years, 10 years, and passengers asked the conductor, "What place is this? Where are we now?" I am the grass. Let me work.
That's terrible.
Man makes a mess. Nature cleans
Nature
it up.
cleans it up.
Cleans it up.
Exactly. Covers it up as well.
And the battlefields I've been to are all beautifully covered with grass.
And we'll be seeing lots of those pictures this weekend with the over at Normandy. But when I like Carl Sandburg, I like the fog. It comes on little cat feet.
Yes.
And because I think it is so true of cats. They just, all of a sudden they're there and all of a sudden they're gone.
Exactly.
And you can't drive the fog away and you can't move a cat if he doesn't want to move.
That's exactly right.
And both of them are dangerous. You know, they really are. So I like the picture of that. Ron, you got another one?
I had, I brought mainly my Angelou poems, but I also have a poem here, another reflecting on death poem by William Blake.
Oh, I love William Blake.
On Another Sorrow is the name of this poem.
And he did do something besides a tiger and
yes, that's exactly
and the little lamb.
And the lamb, that's right. This was one of the songs of innocence as well. So this is On Another Sorrow by William Blake. Can I see another's woe and not be in sorrow too? Can I see another's grief and not seek for kind relief? Can I see a falling tear and not feel my sorrow share? Can a father see his child weep nor be with sorrow filled? Can a mother sit and hear an infant groan, an infant fear? No, never can it be, never can it be. And can he who smiles on all hear the wren with sorrows small? Hear the small bird's grief and care? Hear the woes that infants bear? And not sit beside the next, pouring pity in their breast? And not sit the cradle near, weeping tear on infant's tear? And not sit both night and day, wiping all our tears away? Oh no, never can it be, never can it be. He doth give his joy to all. He becomes an infant small. He becomes a man of woe. He doth feel the sorrow too. Think not thou canst sigh a sigh, and thy Maker is not by. Think not thou canst weep a tear, and thy Maker is not near. Oh, he gives to us his joy, that our grief he may destroy. Till our grief is fled and gone, he doth sit by us and moan.
Oh, I think that's a very happy ending for this program.
His eyes on the sparrow.
That's exactly right.
That's not sad at all. The last two stanzas. Think not thou canst sigh a sigh, and thy Maker is not by. Think not thou canst weep a tear, and thy Maker is not near. It's beautiful.
It is.
And I did not know that poem. Thank you.
Very much like
You
the
are
lamb,
welcome.
too.
It is.
He is meek
It
and
is.
he is mild. He became a
Became
little child.
That's exactly right. That's
Well,
exactly
I
right.
suppose we should have figured out that it came from the Songs of Innocence. They are great. Well, we have done a fun poem today, sort of fun, and we've done some that were not quite that fun, but I've enjoyed it, and I hope you have. And tell Stephen we have missed him.
I will.
And again, I tell our viewers, if you would like for us to talk about a poet or a poem, or if you would like to come and talk about a poet or a poem, then we welcome you. And hope you have a good June, and we will see you in July.